So you're ready to sit down and start building a website. What do you need to make sure that you have first? This could be a website for yourself or a website that you're going to build for clients. Hopefully you guys are starting to build more websites for clients, or at least get up the nerve to start the first one. So these couple of things, things that I require from clients, and then if I'm going to build one for myself or a side project, or if I was building a template or anything like that, these are the things that I always want to have set up first and ready to go. And as I talk through a few of them, I'll explain and tell you some stories of a few times where I've not had these things ready to go and it did not make for the best process ever. So I'm here to help set you guys up for success in building sites for yourself and building sites for clients. And so let's go ahead and talk through these for a second. The first thing I want you to make sure you have is an idea of the style that you're going to go for. Notice I said an ideal. So it could be something like whimsical, it could be kind of more modern, a little more interactive, so where things are like kind of moving as the screen moves. It could be really basic and really simple, it could be something really bright and really colorful, and so you just want to make sure that you have an idea of that. You can do this, of course, from a Pinterest board, you can find inspiration kind of anywhere, and then if this is for a client, make sure that some of these words they're using are words that you understand. And so that first example I just gave, the word whimsical, a site that I'm actually launching tomorrow, the client, that was one of the first words she kept coming up with, was like a way to describe her style, and she kept using the word whimsical. And when I thought of that, I told her, you know, that makes me think of like Alice in Wonderland or something like that, and that's not exactly what she meant. And so we had to come make sure we were clear together on kind of what the overall style we were going for was. And so there's going to be different elements that come into play if you want to have a really interactive site where things are like swiping to the side and you have to hover over this to do this other thing and stuff like that. If you want a site that's like that, that's really different than a website that's going to have really basic minimal features, possibly even be like one long scrolling page. Those are going to be different style-wise, different for some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, and just overall have a different look and feel. And so you want to know roughly what you're going for, and typically your clients will let you know that already. And then a lot of you have developed styles of your own, and you kind of design things that are similar no matter what the client you have, and so clients may eventually come to you for that. If you're just getting started, again, you want to go off of what that client wants. And I was telling somebody earlier this too, to remind them, make sure you're always challenging that client on, it's for their end user, right? So your client may love something whimsical or something really modern, but if the person that they're trying to attract is not in love with a modern style, or if it's going to confuse them to have like things slide and swipe all over the place, don't set out to design a website like that, okay? The second and third things that I want you to have in order to design a website, the second thing is going to be your colors. And so some of these things you can pull together in some type of a mood board if you want to use any of the Adobe products or Canva or something like that. There's a few things that Canva is not good for, but just picking colors and putting things like that together, that's fine. I would encourage you to pick 3 to 6 of them. What I typically will do is have like 4 or 5 across. I have a template that I do this in every time. So, you know, anytime you guys hear me talk about processes and things like that, you'll hear me say things that are repeatable. So it's okay. Like every client doesn't have to have a different mood board. You can start with the same template sort of, and you can buy those things. You don't have to design it from scratch. Buy one on Creative Market, or I love Envato Elements. Anyway, and so I have like 4 or 5 of the starter colors, and then I'll pull tints and shades. So a tint is going to be a lighter version of that color, and then a shade is going to be a darker color of that version. And so that way I have the base color, and then if you need something to go like as a background or somewhere else, you're going to have a few other ones. But we don't want to go crazy with the colors. Just pick 3, 4, 5 max probably to start off with. And then the next thing I want you to have in order are going to be your fonts. And again, I would just pick 1 or 2 of these. There's no harm and no shame if you just have one font across your entire website. If you're going to do that, pick something that has a lot of different weights and a lot of different styles, so you can change it up that way. A lot of fonts end up looking like completely other sets of fonts if you use different styles and different weights. And so my encouragement to you on having those 3 things set ahead of time, again, you can like arrange them on some kind of mood board if you want to be cute about it, or if you have a client that's already going to send you that, maybe they have a mood board picked out, or maybe they've designed one on their own. Sometimes people have done more stuff to help you out than others. Those things can be a really big pain to change later on in the website, okay? So I like to design a styles page on the back end of the website, or again, this you can just go off of that mood board the whole time. But once you have, like, say you're playing in the site and you've put the certain color, a certain kind of red or something in a few different places on the site, if you're going to have to go back and change that, there's, in most themes and in most things that you're going to design, there's not a way to like ultimately just change that color, right? So like in a lot of the Adobe programs, if you need to change a color, you can change it in one place and it can change it everywhere. That doesn't really work that way for websites, and so it can, but typically it doesn't work that way for websites. And so you want to be really clear up front what those colors are going to be. Go ahead and have your client test them out on their phone and have their husband pull it up and whatever, and all these different things that they'll come back to you and be like, well, now that my friend's neighbor pulled it up, it looks kind of pink, or whatever. Go ahead and get those colors settled from the beginning and make sure they have that stuff ready. And the same thing for the fonts. Right now, the site that we're launching tomorrow, I still am messing with one little font on like a sub logo, and at this point in the project, it's just kind of annoying to be doing that, and that's not her fault, or my fault really. It just kind of got pushed to the back burner. But it's one of those things that's like, this is not what we need to be doing way farther down in the process. This needs to be done on the front end of everything. A little tip here too, if you have really bad luck, or if at some point you're really scared of clients changing that stuff on you at the last minute, I even know other designers, and I've done this for myself for a couple of clients, where you have like a sub agreement, so an actual little addition to your contract that says like, I have approved these colors and these fonts and stuff like that. But again, it's just to help you not have to go back and backtrack and do a different type of work later on in the project. The next thing you're going to want to have in order to start, and I'm going to say rough here, and I really do mean rough, but I want you to have your rough copy, rough words, rough copywriting. I want you to know kind of what paragraphs you need and where. So you don't have to have actual sentences or know exactly how big of a piece of text you're going to have, but if you roughly know that you're going to need a little section about you, and you're going to need one on the home page and one on the about page, and those can be pretty similar, but you're going to need two of them. That's a good thing to know. If you're going to need an area for your services, by the way, I have a whole different video for what pages, how to even figure out what pages you need. So we don't want to just be like throwing copy out there and adding pages like a services page or a process page. If those things could possibly be pulled together onto one page, or if they don't even need them, your client might not need those, and they may just tell you like, I need a process page. So I've got a whole other video where you can help them together. You guys together can work through and actually know exactly what pages you are designing for. And so this kind of goes in hand with that. If you are going to have like lots of parameters on how they contact you or the client, then you're going to need a contact page. And so you're going to need probably a few blocks there for the contact page. Another example might be a portfolio. Are you going to have a portfolio that's mostly picture based, or are you going to have some text and some paragraphs for that too? And so just knowing, you don't have to have it written out again, but just knowing like, okay, for every portfolio piece, we're going to have 2 or 3 sentences that tell about the project, and we're going to need the location details of every of the wedding shoots or whatever it is. And so just knowing that this is a block I need, this is a block I need, this is a block I need, this is a piece I need, then that will help you a whole lot more when you go to design. And then you're not designing for just empty space. You're not just designing something and saying like, oops, we need to come up with a few sentences that go here. That does absolutely nothing for your client, and that doesn't do anything for their end user either. And the last thing I want you to make sure that you have in order to sit down and actually design and build a website is going to be your hosting and domain. And so again, I have another couple videos on who I love and use. I use SiteGround for all of my hosting and for client hosting and things like that. And so I have a separate video about why I love them and who I choose for all of that, and then another one on how to install WordPress. So you can find those in the group, or let me know if you need help finding those. And basically the thing I tell people on this is don't wait till the last minute. So if you have carved out, I know everybody's kids are home right now, and you can probably hear mine in the background, and everybody has a kind of a different working schedule right now with the stuff going on around us. And so if you've carved out a set section of time where you've got some quiet time or some focused time to work on a website, make sure that you have this stuff set up ahead of time. The domain and hosting sometimes can take a few hours. They even, industry standard, they say like 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours, depending on if you have an existing client that already has something set up, or if you're setting everything up brand new. It is very easy to install WordPress, and it is easy to start building a website, but some of the technical stuff and all the things have to talk to each other, that can sometimes take a few hours to a few days. And I know there has been more than one occasion where when I first got started that I would be like, sit down, ready to go, okay, I blocked out a few hours, or my kids are at preschool or whatever, and then I get the message that says like, great, this will be ready to work on in 48 hours. I'm like, Oh no. So I don't want that to happen to you. Go ahead and make sure you have your hosting purchased and your domain purchased and anything that you need to link up between those two set up and ready to go first. And then if you have, again, these colors, these fonts, the overall style that you're going to go for, and those rough blocks of copy and words, then you will be ready to sit down and use the right side of your brain to be able to do that. And so my last tip on this is you don't really want to be, when you're designing a site, you don't really want to be switching back and forth between like right brain, left brain activities. And I try to gently explain that to clients in that if they're sending me like little bitty sentences to fix later on, I'm talking like way later in the project, like we're in the last round of edits and things like that, and I try to remind them, you guys can change things on the website. Like, I get it, we want to launch with it, as close to perfect as we can, but when they're still kind of troubleshooting back around, like maybe that orange should be more purple, or maybe that that pink kind of looks too bright. I've had somebody do that. Like, we were on the training call and she was like, now that I pull it up on this other device I have, I think it's way too bright of a pink or whatever. And so that kind of stuff can just be really difficult to deal with once you're into more the design mode. And so a lot of the things on the beforehand, like that deal with their homework and some of this other stuff we've talked about today, that stuff is more like analytical, more logical. You actually have like thought processes behind it. And then you get into this like creative mode where your brain's kind of more loose and exploring different things. And in my opinion, those are kind of hard to switch back and forth from sometimes. And so I would definitely suggest having as much of this stuff taken care of beforehand so that you're not having to switch back and forth with different tasks. So those are my 5 tips. Those are things that I do for every client. And again, having those things really structured and a good setup process is great to do. But even if you're going to sit down and play with a website or just learn to do it yourself, those are things that I would have set up and kind of gone through the thinking process of all of those things first, and then be able to go in and dig into your website. If you need any help building websites, I teach a course called Site Design Blueprint, and I teach virtual assistants and other online business owners how to build non-low code websites, specifically on WordPress. And so I love helping with that. I love helping with all things website and marketing related to websites and all of that. And so I'm happy to help. If you have any other questions, just let me know. We'll see you guys next time.